Hi everybody, I hope that you're all doing really well. So when I am currently filming this video, it is the 10th of January. On the 15th, which is Saturday, it will actually be 11 months since I got my current job working in publishing. So not quite a year, but you know, we're creeping up on that. And I feel like that's actually kind of wild considering how long it took me to get a job in publishing. So that was coinciding with the fact that the lovely Claire Femby tagged me to do the working in publishing tag. And so today I thought I would do just that. Go through some of these questions, talking about my experiences so far working in publishing. Obviously, because I've not been working in publishing that long, you know, I know that my experiences are not going to be that wide-ranging. I'm sure there are many people who could answer these questions far better than I can and with so much more experience. But I do think it would be interesting to look back on my answers to these questions a few years down the line, see how my opinions may have changed. And before I start with the questions, I of course have to say hello to some of the people from my office who I know watch my videos. Hi guys. But anyway, enough rambling, let's get on with these questions. Question number one is, what was your first publishing job? So as I say, my current job right now is actually my first full-time role in publishing, but it is not the first thing that I have ever done in publishing. I have had work experience placements previously, the two notable being work experience placements at Cornerstone, which is an imprint of Penguin Random House, as well as another placement that I did at Icon Books, who are a small independent non-fiction publisher in the UK. At Penguin, I was working in the editorial department, whereas at Icon, I was working in the combined publicity, marketing and sales departments. And I had a really good time working at both of them. So I think Icon was really valuable for me because it made me realise that marketing and publicity was an area that I could go down and in fact might be more suitable for me than editorial. I think for a lot of people when they're first getting into publishing, the only role that a lot of people apply for is editorial assistant. You know, you think publishing, you think of like proofreading, you think of going through manuscripts. But as anybody who works in publishing will tell you, there is so much more to publishing and the industry than just editorial. And I just hadn't considered it before, and especially marketing I hadn't considered because I thought that I would need to be far more skilled on things like InDesign and Photoshop. So I'd just kind of written it off in my head, and I don't even think I'd considered publicity as an area, and yet here we are. But both of those placements were really good fun. You know, doing a lot of general admin tasks like photocopying, making tea for people, sending out mailing, attending meetings, also looking at the unsolicited manuscripts and kind of giving my own feedback on them, which is really quite cool. Question number two is, what is your current publishing job? And my current publishing job is I am a publicity associate at Princeton University Press, obviously working in the European office as opposed to the US. So every time I go home, my dad's like, so have Princeton called you up yet? Are you going to be moving to New Jersey? And I'm like, probably not. So as I said, I got this job back in February of 2021 after a long process of applying to different jobs in publishing. As I've mentioned previously, I graduated from my first degree in July 2016, and I knew that I wanted to work in publishing then, but I didn't have any experience. So I was applying to different jobs, to different internships. I did the two placements that I mentioned in 2017 and then didn't really hear much back. I think I had a couple of interviews, but really just nothing. I then decided in 2018 that the last thing that I wanted to do was have a full academic year again of applying and just not hearing anything back. So I decided that I would apply to do a master's degree, not in publishing. I did it of course in public history because I just didn't feel like I was quite done with the subject. So 2018, 2019, I did my master's, had a really good time doing that. And even though I had had a taster of what it would be like to work in a public history field, I was still very firm that I wanted to pursue publishing, just with maybe a public history field in the background. So I graduated in 2020 feeling pretty confident, and then you know what happened. So we get to March 2020 and within days there were 0 jobs to apply for. Especially between like March and July of 2020, I was lucky if I was able to apply to 3 publishing jobs a week because nobody was hiring. Then in the summer things started to open up again. I did get a couple of interviews, but still really not so many interviews compared to how many places I was applying to. And then finally in January I got an email through from my current manager asking if I wanted to come to interview, and I was like, yes please. I had I think 2 or 3 interviews. I did a couple of tasks for them, kind of related to the kind of things that I would be doing working in publicity. I really enjoyed the interview process. I thought everybody seemed lovely, and apparently they seemed to think I was lovely too. And so yeah, I got offered the job, I think end of January, beginning of February, and then started work on the 15th. So yay! Putting an end to an almost 5-year process of applying for publishing roles. Obviously I had my master's in the middle, but still, it was a long time coming. And yeah, basically what I always describe my job as is that I am the first port of contact for any publicity requests. So people asking for review copies, people asking for the catalogue, people asking for interviews with authors, things like that. I send out monthly newsletters to different publicity contacts. I also personally work on the monograph lists. So these are the very specialised academic books, the kind of things that you would probably find at your university library. It's hilarious how I do my job every single day, but then the second I have to describe it, all idea of what I do goes out of my head. Anybody else find that? But no, I really, really enjoy my job. I feel very, very lucky right now. I really like the company that I work for. I really love the people that I work with. And yeah, I can give a very hearty recommendation for working in publicity because I really like it. I think I just generally like the interaction that you get to have with people outside of the company, but then there is still some sort of engagement with the text itself. And I have, through the process of working here, realised that I definitely couldn't do editorial, so I kind of dodged a bullet there. Question number 3 is, what are your favourite or least favourite things about working in the publishing industry? I have the very idealistic answer for favourite thing is that just generally getting to work with books. I don't know if you know this about me, but I get very excited about books, and the idea that my job is focused around them and I'm focused around talking to people who also love books as much as I do. Winner. I always say that my favourite thing about my particular job, my favourite task to do, is when I come into the office and there is a big stack of newspapers and magazines waiting for me. Part of my job, which I didn't mention, is that I get to look through all of the magazines and I get to rifle through them, see if there are any reviews of any of our books in there. And I don't know what it is, I just love that aspect of my job so much. I have so much fun doing it. And I think it's just, for me, like, this review or interview or whatever it is about this book is like the final product of what we have been working for in publicity. It's the culmination of a lot of work, and it just makes me very happy. And of course, most of that job I do online, but when I get to actually have like a physical stack of magazines, it's nothing compares. I would say that my least favourite aspect so far of working in the publishing industry is how much academic publishing is seen as an afterthought by the rest of the industry, or just seen generally as a separate part of the industry that, you know, the trade won't go anywhere near. It's something that I've often heard people who work in academic publishing kind of lament, is the fact that it is really, really hard to get a job in trade publishing if you started out in academic, and I don't really get why there is that divide. I think if you were working in academic and then wanted to move over to like trade fiction, I'd understand it, but trade non-fiction, like, yes, you're not submitting things to as many journals or anything, but a lot of your non-fiction contacts would be the same. I don't know, I think maybe I need to work in publishing a little bit longer for me to really understand that. I do think for myself, the amount of time that I've worked here has made me realise that I would want to stay within non-fiction. I don't think I could move over to fiction publishing. But yeah, I don't really get that. University presses are great. Support them. Question number 4 is, have your reading habits changed since you started working in publishing? And I would say no, my habits haven't really changed. I read the same way that I always do. I just feel like I know more about books that are coming out, and I just have more information and more resources to find out about new books. The quantity of books that I know about is just more through exposure. My main source of that coming through the fact that we are subscribed to the bookseller, of course, and I'm always rifling through that every week. Question number 5 is, can you share your top resources for anyone wanting to break into the industry? And I would say the main place that you want to go if you want to find out about advice or different jobs, different companies that are hiring, I would really go for Twitter. Obviously, there are the traditional job sites that you can go to, but Twitter has been an invaluable resource. So many publishers are on there, so many authors, people who work in the industry are on Twitter, and I feel like, especially because I'm very much in the publishing Twitter-verse, I feel like I'm constantly bombarded with information and advice. Also, I would really highly recommend the Publishing Hopefuls Facebook group. That was one that was very, very helpful to me because it was set up in 2020 during lockdown, and if you are a publishing hopeful, you will find lots of people who are just like you in the exact same boat, just pooling resources together. I remember every single week somebody would do a big master list of all of the jobs that were hiring, and that was so incredibly helpful. You know, a problem shared is a problem halved, and I would find so many jobs there that I just couldn't find by myself. The one downside to the Publishing Hopefuls Facebook and Twitter is that, unfortunately, you will often see people who got the job that you wanted, and it took everything in me to not be like, why I oughta. Like, I'm so happy for you. It should have been me. Question number 6 is, what is one publishing department you would like to work in for a day? I would really like to get more insight into audiobooks, because I just don't really have much of an idea of what the everyday tasks are for working with audiobooks. I often hear our audiobook manager talking about like what she's getting up to, the kind of titles that she's working on, and it sounds really interesting, but I'm still kind of clueless. And as somebody who is a very big audiobook listener, like, of course I'm interested in that side of publishing, but it always sounds really interesting when the discussion is going about like matching audiobook narrators to the audiobook, what books get chosen to be audiobooks and what don't, and why. I just find that really interesting. I don't think it's an area of publishing that I would want to move into, but I'd be fascinated to learn more about it. Question number 7 is, if you could change one thing about the publishing industry, what would it be? I think mine would be the same as a lot of people who are getting into publishing, which is transparency about pay. Not just for entry level, but across all levels of publishing. Can we just have that, please? please. I feel like publishers are starting to get a lot better at providing an entry-level pay, but then as somebody who is now in the industry, I have no idea what is the right amount to ask for when I get promoted. If and when I get promoted. Can't be that cocky, Charlotte. I'm very sure of myself when I get promoted. And I do think there should be transparency rather than the cop-out of, oh, it will be a competitive salary. Like, competitive with who? Question number 8 is, can you share your top 3 tips to stand out from the crowd when applying for publishing jobs? I mean, I barely know why I was hired. I guess the key thing with your publishing cover letters is that you have to be specific. I can rant for a very, very long time about how ridiculous the applying process is for publishing. You know, it is basically a job in itself to apply for a job in publishing. It's not as simple as just sending out a cover letter or a CV. Like, a lot of them will be these really long, complex forms asking you to input all the information that they could just get if they had your CV. And you have to specifically tailor answers to questions. You know, they want you to know the ins and outs of their ethos, of their website, of their backlist books, of their front list, and it's just a lot. You can't be generic on that. You can't just copy paste answers over. It's kind of annoying when the main thing you want to say is, I want this job because I need the money. But it is true, you do have to be specific. You do have to kind of do your homework on the company and the books that they publish. The one thing that will come up repeatedly is that you can't just say, I've always loved reading, because so has everybody who's applying. What makes you the best fit, and why do you want to be in the industry? And I think just generally being able to show your interest in books and publishing outside of career is also really helpful. You know, I didn't start my YouTube channel with the expectation of getting jobs out of it, but I will say that the amount of times that I was asked for interview doubled once I started my channel, because it is just an interesting thing that not everybody has. So, you know, having a book blog or a booktube channel or a bookstagram account is something like that that just demonstrates your interest rather than just this very wishy-washy, oh, I've always loved reading. I think it can be really helpful. It's a good tangible indicator of your interest. Though I wouldn't say that's the only reason that you should start a channel, because that would become obvious to an audience very, very quickly. Question number 9 is, have you ever been rejected for a publishing job you loved? Can you share any tips for people dealing with this? I think just generally the way that the job application process is designed, like I say, it's not just a generic cover letter and a CV. You know, you are forced to really think about why it is you would be the perfect person for this job, why this industry, why this particular company is right for you. And I think when you're doing that repeatedly, you start to convince yourself that, yes, I am the perfect person for this job and nobody else could compare to me. Not only that, but this job is the perfect job for me. This company is the perfect company for me. So when you do get that rejection, it's like, oh. I think also because I tended to jump the gun a lot when I came to applying for jobs. I wouldn't have even submitted an application and I was already looking on Google Maps, trying to work out where I could live, trying to work out where the nearest gym was, where the nearest food shop was, because I had to kind of plan in my head whether or not this job would be a good fit for me. And I suddenly had this future planned in my head, and then I'd get a rejection email and it'd be like, oh, my future has gone. And I think I've kind of blocked out a lot of them. The only one that I can really remember is the interview that I had just before Christmas. So the interview that I had just before I got this job. And I know looking back at it now that it was not the right job for me and it was not the right company. It was not a publisher that was really aligned to the kind of things that I like to read. So I probably would have been really bored there. It was also not as well paid as the job that I currently have now. And it was in London. So I know that all of my money would have been sucked up by public transport and London living prices. So I know with hindsight that I am so lucky to have the job that I have now, and that I did get that rejection back in December 2020. But I'm not gonna lie to you, it stung when I got that rejection, because I felt like, oh, I'd done all of this work and now I'm back to square one. And like I say, it was like after 4.5 years of applying for jobs and getting nowhere, it seemed. I actually got my rejection phone call whilst I was on a walk, and I remember just ringing my mum in tears, just like, can you please come pick me up? Oh, that was not a good day for me. But it's fine, it's fine. We're in better places now. And then finally, question number 10 is, what advice would you give to anyone trying to get into publishing from a different industry? I don't think my advice would be any different than I would give to anybody else, because I don't think any experience is bad experience. It is all about the way that you are able to twist the experience that you have had and make it relevant to the job that you're trying to apply for. This is advice that I would give to anybody, but I would just advise that you really, really look into the different branches of publishing and kind of work out what you think you'd be suited for based on what you've done previously. I know Lena Norms has done a really good breakdown of different jobs within publishing, which I think would be very, very helpful. But no experience is bad experience. Just because you've worked in an area that is not publishing does not mean that you don't have anything that is transferable. And I think publishing is an industry that really values other opinions and other perspectives and worldviews. Well, you know, ideally. I think any insight and experience that you have is only going to be viewed as valuable. So best of luck to anybody who is currently applying. You know, I salute you. I am so glad that I'm not currently doing that, but it does get better. You will get there eventually. I have faith in you. So there we go. Those are all of my answers to the working in publishing tag. I'm trying to think off the top of my head if Leanne or Karis have done this before. If not, I tag you to do this, and I will have a think about other people who I know who do booktube who also work in publishing. I'd be very interested to know who in my audience actually works in publishing, aside from people at my office. Love you. If you do let me know your answers to any of these questions in the comments down below. Are you interested in working in publishing, and has anything that I've said made you more interested, or does it make you want to give it a wide berth? I'd love to hear from you. I hope you're having a fantastic, fantastic day, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks. Bye.